At West Point, where physical fitness is very important, we asked cadets what their thoughts were on current physical standards for tests such as the APFT and IOCT. So what are your thoughts on physical standards at West Point?
I feel like there is a difference between men and women. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Men and women are built differently, and the standards should be different.
I think that overall West Point does a great job of preparing us physically and like giving us the tools that we need to do well. But also the system is very self-dependent, so like all the tools are there, but not everyone uses them. And I think that some of the standards aren't as aren't as strictly enforced as they should be, just because people kind of skirt by without meeting the standards.
Well, I think that the Army and West Point in general, they're moving more towards the balancing the playing field, having each gender have the same standard. But personally, I don't agree with it because, one, I just think that our biology, our physical makeup is different. So whenever girls have to do sit-ups, it makes sense that they have to do the same amount as guys for the minimum. But push-ups, I don't expect a girl to hit 50 push-ups as a minimum. So that brings me on to my second point about if I don't think that the standards should be the same, then what should they be?
I think the physical standards are reasonable, but I think that it also leads to a lot of narcissistic people and sometimes makes those people inconsiderate of that other people are not on the same level as they are. And so it kind of puts this divide and singles people out.
I think there's some things that could be done better in terms of the scale for the minimum scales for both the men and the women, because I think it's just a little too easy, and a lot of people are able to skip by with those low physical standards who should not be commissioning. So I think the ACFT is moving in a good direction, but as long as they make sure that the standards for the ACFT is at a good baseline, then I think it's gonna be an effective change. But right now, the APFT, the IOCT, things like that, people are able to not pass those and still graduate. It's not good.
I think that physical standards here are pretty easy to just pass by. You don't really have to work very hard to do well in the APFT. You kind of just show up and do it. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's not really a good test of physical fitness, especially when you can just prepare 2 weeks in advance and just do push-ups and sit-ups in your room. You'd never have to really do much work to get a high score.
With different physical scales for men and women, for physical assessments and entrance evaluations, we asked cadets if they thought one side had a certain advantage in all these tests.
Do you think one side is at a certain advantage?
I don't think so. I think both sides are pretty well fit as far as what's expected of them. I think females might have a slightly easier standard to fill that doesn't challenge them as much. I think that the maxes for the women should be higher, but I think as far as passing standards, I think that it's about equal.
To an extent, maybe girls do have a little bit more of an advantage, it would be nice if everyone could be equal and that would all be easier, I guess. But at the end of the day, we aren't built the same. We're all humans, but women and men have different attributes, and there are some girls who can do it, but not everyone. And the Army, we need people, and you can't be cutting people out because there's plenty of guys who can't even meet their own standards. So
while the Army's trying to balance it out, I think right now females have it quite easy on the APFT and even on the IOCT because the men's minimum is the girls' maximum, and I think it's just too far on the end of the spectrum. It needs to be brought up, the standard. Not, it doesn't have to be brought up to the men's standard, but it definitely needs to be brought up from where it is right now.
I feel like they're good. I feel like the 19 push-ups for females, like minimum, is kind of low, but I mean, it is what it is. And I also think that their minimum guys for 42 is our maximum. It's kind of interesting, but other than that, I think it's pretty decent.
One-sided, like, so I think the girl standard, like, there's a huge spectrum of physical, like, standards for girls, and there are girls who, like, can easily meet those standards, and there's girls who, like, really struggle to meet those standards. And in order to, like, find a middle ground, they, like, kind of averaged it together. So there are, like, girls who aren't passing, who should be passing, and there are girls who are just, like, passing it low, like, way super easily. But, like, the same can be said for guys, but, like, it's just, I feel like it's a little harder to meet that standard, and I feel like a lower percentage of guys are able to meet it versus girls.
I don't think so because of the different scales. So if, like, for the ACFT all the scales are the same, I think that might, like, hinder some people's ability to do well. Like, for me personally, I don't really deadlift very much, so it's gonna be kind of harder. Whereas if I was a dude, I could just, like, go and deadlift the 400 pounds at the ACFT. But on the APFT, the different standards I think evens it out pretty well.
With the introduction of the new Army Combat Fitness Test in the fall of 2019, we asked cadets their opinion on the new test. What do you think of the new ACFT?
I think the ACFT as it is right now doesn't really account for men and women. It puts everybody on a similar scale. And I think for what it's being used for, it makes sense because it's comparing everybody on their soldier skills, which is what the Army is really all about and what fitness in the Army should be about. I think it'll be difficult to grade at West Point because everything is for a grade here. But as far as how your athletic ability translates to being a soldier in the Army, I think it makes sense.
But we did like each event throughout class, and I think that it is a much better test to get, I guess, like a well-rounded view of someone's physical fitness. Like me personally, I'm not the greatest runner, but like the deadlift like worked more in my favor than like say the run might have. But I also think there are like logistical things that go into that. Like maybe this is a once a year test or like once every 3 years test, whereas like we keep the APFT as a semester type of test. Because
Personally, I don't like it because it's hard for every cadet and everybody that's doing it. But I mean, if it's the Army's goal of like equaling out all sides, then sure.
I just don't like it. Like I don't like how it. For one, it doesn't make sense to have all of those events because it's gonna probably end up like a modified week, waking up at like 5 o'clock every morning, and then all these regs, and everyone's just gonna be screwed up. And then two, I just kind of don't see the point. And three, also I feel like I'm just getting really good at the current APFT. I don't want to change to the ACFT.
Oh, I think it's a good change. The fact that it's gender neutral is good, and also I think age neutrality maybe is a little different, but I think the best change that comes out of it is that like each branch has their own physical standards that they need to meet. So with that change, that means that people, I'm not saying that people in certain branches shouldn't be able to like have physical standards, but like if you're going quartermaster, you don't need to be at the same physical standard as someone who's going infantry, and someone who can meet the infantry physical standard should also not be going infantry. So like that kind of cut off, being branch dependent, I think it's good.
I thought the ACFT was a pretty good test. There were like things, I don't know if you watched it, but there were things that like the grading scale was weird, like on the push-ups and then on the shuttle run and like the leg tuck. So when you do like the little shuttle run, you kind of like do a sideways skip, And like if you crouch down, you go a lot slower. So that's what I was doing in the beginning, and then I was like, wait, I'm wasting so much time when these people are just like standing up and like running. So then I ended up doing that at the end because I was like, this is stupid. Like there's no a standard, I guess, established yet.